Hi, this is Ken Scott, and you're listening to Fab 4 Free for All.
And welcome to another edition of the Fab 4 Free for All, the Beatles and related podcast on the internet, show, whatever you want to say, video, audio. We're everywhere when we can be. And tonight, I am your moderator, Mitch Axelrod, and I am joined, as I always are, Good English, Tony Chiguardo.
Hi, folks.
And Rob Leonard.
Hello, everyone. How you doing?
And you can see there is a fourth person with us. Someone joined the Zoom by accident. We don't know who he is. We've been asking him to leave, but he hasn't left yet, so we figured we'd test his knowledge on our subject. Actually, we are very, very excited to finally have on the show Chip Madinger, author and Beatles expert. He's written 8 Arms to Hold You, and the real reason that he's on tonight is because an incredible book on John Lennon called Lennonology, and we'll give Chip plenty of time to talk about that towards the end of the show, but we are so happy to have him. How you doing, Chip? Nice to have you.
Thanks for having me on, guys. I appreciate it.
We appreciate you taking the time. So, again, I might have given away what we're going to do tonight is we're going to talk about John Lennon, and the recent, as of this taping, Lennon release is the expanded, remixed, remastered, everything, Mind Games. We want to talk a little bit about the backstory of this album. You know, we've been sharing a lot of the promotion which Sean and the team have been doing on social media. And a lot of people, for some reason, are not pleased with this album. They're pleased with the remix, but in general, it's almost like it was in 1973. The album is not making a dent really commercially in terms of people's opinions of changing people's opinions. Some they are, some they're not. And I wanted to, before we even get into the whole backstory of the album, you know, let's go through, guys. I mean, what do you think? I mean, in terms of the album itself, I've always loved this. I've always felt like Mind Games was John Lennon's poppiest album. And I know Andrew from Polygram said that, but I agree with him. I always thought it was his most accessible album.
Absolutely. Yeah.
Tony, you were saying?
I just was agreeing with you. That's the first thing that would come into mind. It's probably, in its way, John's first accessible, truly accessible album. It's not to say that there weren't fantastic songs on either, the first two, and there are some good things on the third. But, this one is extremely accessible, and it confused me. I hope you don't mind me just getting into one thought, but
go ahead.
As I was thinking about this record, I just sort of found it fascinating that why is it that with John, if it wasn't something that was angst driven, or it wasn't something that had some sort of a very obvious mood through it, like Imagine and like Plastic Ono Band, why did we write this album off? Why did fans look at this? What made it any different than something that Paul would have done that would have been a great record? Why was it any different than Band on the Run? In terms of, he was writing some songs. There were some things that he obviously was feeling very strongly. But just because it wasn't about politics, and it wasn't about Primal Scream Therapy, and it wasn't about some pointed thing that John was up to, is that why it got pushed aside? I don't know.
I have an answer for that.
Go ahead.
It has everything to do with John Lennon. John Lennon was always talking about how he wrote from his gut. He wasn't out writing pop songs, even though he's written some of the greatest pop songs in the world, or co-written.
Yeah.
And to John, he called, and this is in 1980 more than 1973, but it's looking back, he talks about, he didn't want to make a dovetail joint, even though he did that for Double Fantasy, for many of the songs on that. That's what I think. I think if you listen to the music on this record, it is a very pop album. There are some politics in it. There's some
sure.
apologies to Yoko in it.
Sure.
And there's some throwaways in this too. Some throwaway rock songs. Meat City, Tight As.
Okay, I'm out of here.
Whoa.
It was good. It only took us a few minutes to rile Chip up. This was good.
Don't worry, Chip. You'll be out of here a few times if you listen to Rob.
Yeah, don't worry. They're not throwaways. Don't worry, Chip.
Go ahead, Rob.
But you know what I mean. Tight As is a fun song. I don't know if it belongs on that record. Maybe it belongs on a B-side. But, Meat City's a fun song. I like Meat City a lot. But that's what I think. And plus, it came after Sometime in New York City. And, Sometime in New York City scared some people away who were John Lennon fans.
His stock was down.
Yeah, so, and plus there was only one single off this album. There could have been two. There was only one. Mind Games did pretty well, I thought, on the charts. But there could have been Free to People could have been a second single, but it was also 1973, the end of 73, and the war isn't over yet, but it's getting closer. But I love Free to People. You Are Here, could have been the single. Could have been.
We'll get into that when we talk into,
right, but there could have been a second single and there wasn't. So
I think there could have been 2 or 3 singles from this.
Yeah.
Chip, what do you think?
One thing I wanted to comment, you were wondering about what changed, and this was John's first true solo production.
Right.
True.
Now, it's come to, with the box, it's become more aware that Yoko was there for the tracking sessions and was offering her take on things. And on a few of the boxes, she was even credited as co-producer. But that would have just been for the tracking, and I think that might have a lot to do with it. A lot of the songs are leftovers from late 71, scraps that didn't make it into Sometime in New York City.
Yeah.
There are a few things that contribute to the differences between it and Imagine or it and Plastic Ono Band.
So Rob, going back to your point, do artists, especially Beatles, and I have to say especially Beatles because that's what we're talking about, do artists pigeonhole themselves by doing what they've done and are not allowed to expand on their own,
sometimes it depends on the artist. I think Walls and Bridges is a great album, and that's half a year later he starts to put that together. So I don't know. That's a very good point. The Walls and Bridges stuff was mostly new, like Chip said. There was leftovers on Mind Games, so that's part of it for me. I like Mind Games. I didn't like the muddy sound that we got used to. As we're not sure why it came out muddy, but then in the 2000s when Yoko remixed everything for that album and everything of John's, it sounded a lot better. This sounds even better than the 2003 or 4 version. So to me, they go back to the 16-track masters and really do a great job with this. And I think that helps also because I think John learned how to produce in 1974, with Harry Nilsson and then with his own record.
Mm-hmm.
And I think the Harry Nilsson record made him a great producer because he had to put together that album from various takes, and it was Party Central when they recorded it. So I think that was part of it. I think there's learnings.
And actually, to Chip's point too. Chip, would you say that this was probably, not only was it the first time John was producing, but this was the first time he was going back to earlier demos and song fragments? He did that a little bit during the Beatle years. He'd start something and then finish it later. But Plastic Ono Band, it seems like those songs. There were pieces that were left over from Let It Be, to Get Back.
Look at Me, and
Remember, all that stuff.
Child of Nature.
But on this record, those demos are from very disparate periods, aren't they? They're from sort of all over the highway for this record, right?
Well, John made it clear with the Mind Games album that what he does is he doesn't necessarily have all of his songs together until maybe 2 weeks before he goes in the studio. He says he's put himself on a deadline and a crunch,
right?
And that's when he's come up with several of the songs,
right? Right.
or strung them together. But and if you give me a minute while you guys talk about something else, I can tell you which ones were written at the last,
Yeah.
before the sessions, and which ones were written at
Yeah.
the sessions.
Well, like Make Love Not War had been floating around for a while
Sure.
as that. And then
Call My Name, that was floating around 71.
Mhm.
right. So yeah, so I'm just thinking like a few like that.
Little bits of Meat City.
Right.
Little bits of Shoe Shine.
Right.
And
let me ask you something though. Tony and I were talking about this off mic, and I wanted to bring this up because I've been reading a lot of interviews with Sean lately because he's obviously been promoting, and Sean said that there was a lot of John Lennon fatigue in 1973. The Beatles were everywhere. John Lennon and Yoko Ono were everywhere. John tried to produce an album that was going to be commercially more or well received, much better than Sometime in New York City. But he said there was a different atmosphere of music. Now, 73, we're talking about the singer-songwriters now, the Joni Mitchells, the Carly Simons, the James Taylors, there was a change in culture. Sean even said that even in 1973, the critics hated Led Zeppelin. So, I mean, you weren't going to appreciate John Lennon. And the critics also said that John Lennon was writing songs, too emotional, and from where he's at this point in life. I know, and
I don't know.
I'm going to give you a chance to answer. But again, what's the difference between this and a Double Fantasy? They all had. He was coming from a different point 5 years or 7 years, 6 years later, but he still was writing emotional stuff. And the same thing, the critics also said there's a hodgepodge of songs. Sgt. Pepper's was a hodgepodge of songs.
Right.
I mean, come on. We had When I'm 64 and then Lucy in the Sky and then Within You Without You. Come on. I mean, so what's the big difference? And maybe that's where your point comes in, Rob, about it being John Lennon. He wasn't allowed to write mushy love songs like, You Are Here and I'm Sorry and, Aisumasen, whatever. So it's very odd that at that time the critics chose to just really distance themselves from this album. And
the
public too.
Is what you're asking, Mitch, is what's the difference? I'm sorry, I had to go into a little weird old water there.
Yes.
But I think from a musical standpoint, one of the things you hear on the Elementals mix, I think in particular, is that you mentioned Double Fantasy. To me, there are two very common threads musically between Mind Games and Double Fantasy. And Chip, we may be thinking of the same thing, but when you hear those Elementals, John was a little bit ahead of the curve musically. It doesn't come out as much in the final version of the album, but there's a tropical vibe in a couple of these tunes. There's stuff like Mucho Mungo that he was going to do, but like you listen to You Are Here, the version of the Elementals mix. You listen to what was the other one that I wrote down? Intuition. I was laughing. I was like, these could have been like Jimmy Buffett could have covered these arrangements.
This reminds me of
in 1978. Gon Troppo. And so, yeah, you could say that they're so disparate. But when you listen to these Elementals, and I think John, as a producer, took them in different directions, which as a songwriter and arranger, you're damn well entitled to do. But when you listen to the Elementals, I hear a lot of connections back to Double Fantasy. Because I think John writing a pop song, I think had somehow which now I was thinking about it today. I said, well, what if Paul and John had hooked up in 1974? What would they have done? They would have written a friggin' reggae song. Honestly, Paul's deep love of reggae, John's into all his tropicals. That's where they would have gone. Maybe, who knows? But anyway, just my two cents.
But Chip,
I was going to say this: the other Beatles notwithstanding, this is the first album where John has played with truly professional musicians who can turn his visions into something that we can hear.
That's a good
I mean,
point,
these
too.
guys,
Yeah.
these guys are top of their game.
Yeah.
And that's something he continued on pretty much through the rest of his recording career. I mean, Klaus popped in there every now and then, and you can hear how Gordon Edwards just smokes him.
Yeah.
Yeah, but Klaus in his own way. I mean, Klaus was still a professional. Klaus, and no offense to Gary Von Sayok, believe me, but
Right. But
Klaus smokes Gary. I mean,
Right.
let's just face it. And Gordon smokes Klaus, but and Klaus smokes.
And Tony smokes.
Whoa.
No,
Hey, we don't do that anymore.
he meant
No,
Tony
no,
Levin.
no.
He's talking about Tony Levin.
Oh, I thought you talked Tony Trequardo.
No.
No,
I only
no.
do it when I'm imitating Paul. But anyway, I'm sorry.
No.
All right.
No, but I mean, you know what? You're right. He had great musicians. I will disagree a little with all of you. I think the original production needed help, and I know it was his own production. He was his own producer. And Sean recently said that he thinks the strengths of the album are John's voice and his production. Well, I don't agree with that. I think that what made it, I won't say what made it the main reason it was not commercially accepted or because critically, actually, if you look, a lot of the critics did give it praise, but obviously it only went gold. For any other artist, that'd be great. But I think I think with John being his own producer, it didn't help. I think he did need some outside help to unmuddy the waters, so to speak, and that's why with Sean's help and his team, this really brings the album to a new level.
You don't think that there were parts of Imagine that were way too dense production wise?
Oh, no.
Or parts, I mean,
I'm not even going back to those because that's all Phil Spector.
yeah.
I mean, and I'm not saying I love Phil Spector. George Harrison said he didn't love Phil Spector at the end either, and if he could have done All Things Must Pass, as we know, he said he hated Wah Wah. But honestly, I know it's his first time, and when you listen to the 5 out of the 6 discs, the other ones, you do hear everything that is incredible, that if John was a better producer, and I don't want this to come off the wrong way, I think the mix would have been different at the beginning, and it may have been accepted a little more. I'm not saying, I think the album is really good. A lot of people just say they're mediocre songs and they don't even deserve to be put out, blah, blah, blah. I don't believe in any of that, but I do believe the production was kind of muddy.
Can I say
think
something?
Record
I'm
Plant-
sorry, Chip.
Yeah,
Chip.
go ahead.
I was
Chip,
going to say, I think Record Plant might have a little something to do with that, because you look at Mind Games, it was muddy. Walls and Bridges needed a little polishing in the high end.
Yeah.
Rock and Roll was
Disgusting.
muddy.
Yeah.
So, and you can hear, though, but then from the tapes that they've been able to extract the original performances and what we can do nowadays to what we could do 50 years ago is
Sure.
amazing.
And he's
Tony,
got, they've got Roy Cicala. I mean, of all, you've got an amazing engineer on that stuff.
Yeah.
And but I think, I don't know, to your point, Mitch, I think when it comes to the production, it's, as I said, I think that, everybody's all up in arms about, Sean taking off the horn, the sax solo in One Day at a Time. And I get that, because I think John had to have made some very conscious producer decisions, and you hear him throughout the last disc where he's guiding the band along, during the where you hear the songs being put together. He's really very much being a true producer, and I think he had a vision in his head. So
You're right.
I think I was saying, well, the production was, I do think, as Chip's saying, some of it had to have had to do with the technology, what he was trying to get out of it. Maybe his vision wasn't fully realized, but I think as a producer, I think he had a fairly decent vision about the record.
Well, give me one sec, Rob. Give me one sec. You're right, Tony, and I'm going to clarify by saying there's a difference between production and producer. All right, so and you just made me think of this, because you're right. on the last disc, you hear John guiding everybody, and that is a true producer. All right, where he doesn't have to listen to Phil tell him what to do or anybody tell him what to do, opposed to, you know, him working the mixes and the board and everything. I mean, there's a difference there. So yeah,
That's engineering.
As a producer, I'll give him props. The production is not great. That's all.
Well, I was going to say, Tony, when you brought up Mind Games leading, it like skips over to go to Double Fantasy. And to me, it has everything to do with the backing vocals on both those albums. Something different, who I think are very good. And there's actually good sections where you hear them very well.
You might want to clarify that Something Different is the name of the backing group.
Yes.
That sounded like out of context. That was kind of
good point. Good point. I was thinking that everyone would know. So anyway, so to me, like something like Starting Over, with the high backing vocals and a couple other songs that have it. And that's what I thought when I first was listening to Mind Games is, John, was doing it then. You sometimes forget about things, except when you start to study it. And to me, that's important, though, John always talked about, he thought, there was a lot of production problems with the fact that the vocals were too high. And then when they went back and did Double Fantasy stripped, obviously he's not there, but they stripped a lot of the double tracking and a lot of the things that John did to protect his voice because he wasn't too sure of it at that time. Of course, he was wrong, but, that's what was going through his head because he hadn't recorded in 5 years. Right. So, and to me, there's some really nice parts where it's just the band. I mean, where it's the vocal group, Something Different in some of these different mixes that I really enjoyed. Only People, Free to People. It's very enjoyable.
Yeah. Chip, I'm sorry. Go ahead, bro.
No, that's it. So
I was just going to ask, Chip, of all the things, I mean, we've all heard so many things from the underground over the years and et cetera. Was there something on the box in particular that kind of, I won't say blindsided us, but were there a couple of things on the box that made you kind of go, whoa, I used to do the nipper head tilt,
I think the what's the term they used for them? The where they started at the beginning with the demo.
Yeah.
What's the term they used for that?
It was the evolutionary.
The evolution mixes.
Yeah.
Those are fascinating because, like I've said on a couple other podcasts, sorry if I'm repeating it, but it's for us older people with short attention spans. We get to hear a little bit of the demo, and then we get to hear maybe a couple of the rehearsal takes, and then it gets a little bit further along, and then we hit the final take, and with some mixed differences, and those are fantastic. Those,
yeah.
It's funny because we're going to talk about we are going to talk about the box, the deluxe box. So the 6 CD, 2 Blu-ray, Partridge in a Pear Tree, everything else in the box. We did not get the cube, at least. Did you get the cube, Chip?
Yes, I got the cube.
Okay.
I paid for the cube. I did not get the cube.
Okay. I didn't think anybody got the cube. And Chip has now added an extension on his house just for the cube. And the copy of All Things Must Pass.
Supposedly the cube weighs 40 pounds.
Now Chip's going to see if he has it.
18 kilograms, whatever that is.
If you drop it on your cat, the cat will be flat. But anyway, so we're going to talk about that. And now I want to go back and tell a little about the album because there's a narrative coming out with Sean, and I'm not going to be negative about it, but I want people to understand where John was at the time of this album. He was in the middle of immigration issues. As soon as he was starting the album, they separated. John and Yoko separated. So he also wanted, like we said, he wanted an album that was going to be better received than Sometime in New York City. I still can't believe that the acronym says STINK, which is perfect for that album. But so, Yoko was doing Feeling the Space album. May had rounded up musicians for that. John loved it. They used the same musicians, and then Yoko was gone, or John was gone. So,
but we do. I still have to say, and I know what you're talking about the narrative with Sean, but it's going to confuse folks further because, as Chip mentioned, a few of us, referred to, Yoko's presence is audibly there. She is in the studio. She's making comments.
Yeah, she's at the end, like, that's good, or
yeah. So the question is, where is our, like, I mean, Chip, do you know the timeline in terms of Yoko? We know they were having problems. The problem stemmed from the November of '72. Right. So we know that there were already issues going on there, but she obviously wasn't gone yet because she's still in the room, during this. So how did that work time-wise, Chip? What's the timeline there?
The album was tracked in 5 consecutive days. So she was there for all the tracking sessions. Next week was set of rough mixes. Then they had a week or two worth of overdubs. And then they got into editing. And the amount of editing that was done on this album isn't evident in the box anywhere. But Tight As is chopped up of a bunch of different little pieces. You've heard You Are Here. Their verses taken out. But to answer your question on the timeline, I think somewhere in the late overdubbing process, if you believe May Pang's narrative, is when that transition was made. And then they left within a couple days after the album being completed.
Right. But
they headed off for LA.
But the album, for all intents and purposes, was done recorded without Yoko there, but then she was there for the I'm going to say the final production of it, so to speak.
Flip it around. She was there for the first week. Yoko was.
Oh, the first week. Okay. Mm-hmm. Yeah, and then after that, she was not there. So that makes sense. Now, you would know, Chip, you have the Cube, and the Cube itself, $1,350, folks. I'm sorry, but I have to put food on the table for my family. But there's probably 60-40 Yoko and John in that Cube. Have you had a chance to peruse it? So is that, and I know Sean wants to keep his dad's music alive and he wants to keep his mom's music alive. And the tale of John and Yoko together. He understands the reality of that there was a split and May Pang is in the picture, but are we thinking, like, is he trying to, I don't want to say pull one over on us, but by having so much in the Cube, and also, she's all over the discs itself. If you take the ultraviolet light and you shine it on the John disc, it becomes Yoko. Is the narrative being...
Oh, there's a spoiler.
Well, no, we are going to give away. We are going to give away spoilers, but
we have to because it's really hard to find some of this stuff.
Well, and I will go on my rant about one of the little extra things.
Yes, but you'll do it in code.
I'll do it in Morse code. Yeah.
So in any case, are we being given a narrative that is trying to change history? Because it's not the real narrative. It's not what was really happening. I'm going to say in reality. I know that I just used the word real and reality in the same sentence, but it really isn't. And now I said really. It's not the truth of what was happening at that time. Are we getting that false narrative?
I don't think so. I think what's happened here is we have a situation where there's not a lot of photographic content. There's no video content from that era, except for John's open reel stuff, which was fascinating to see.
Yes,
pop up in the online video. But I think they kind of had to fill in some of the gaps where they didn't have any information about the songs. So we put in John's bookshelves. We put in a section on learning numerology, and all of these other things, which are interesting. And I think it's just to make it a deluxe edition, they need to have something for every song, and they're just filling in the gaps.
Well, then to bring it around then, Chip, and I don't want to be, but does that equate to that? I mean, if you're introducing so much Yoko material, first of all, my thought would have been, then why not just give us Filling the Space
Correct.
as another disc? Okay, that's a problem with rights and royalties, probably, and who owns them, whatever. But
hold it, that's what happened with Plastic Ono Band. The Yoko stuff was on that.
On the Blu-ray, right?
Yeah, and
so
plus
why
was loads of stuff? So
so why wasn't Filling the Space on here? But
maybe it's on there and we haven't found it yet.
That's interesting as heck. Wow, maybe it's on the Blu-ray. That's a good point.
Nah,
it's not.
It's not, right?
It's not.
Okay.
It's not.
I was going to say, no, I haven't. I haven't touched the Blu-rays yet. But going back to sort of what you were saying though, Chip, it's like, did they add it for the sake of getting that super deluxe? Like, in other words, had we just sort of let it be and said, okay, this is what we have. This is all we have on John. And it amounts to a 6-disc set of audio and, one DVD disc of some interesting footage that amounts to 35, 40 minutes, and charged accordingly, and put in, a Lennon book with some of the photos and, the comments from the musicians, etc. And instead of 100 and something page book, was it? So I guess where I'm going is it a money grab? Is it a money grab to do that rather than just have done hey, if you're a fan of Yoko Ono's work, here's Yoko 71 to 74, and done a separate piece.
I think the Cube was the estate pushing the envelope, or Apple pushing the envelope to see what the breaking point of the fans were. I might have thought it was with All Things Must Pass at $800.
1,000.
But this guy, this Cube comes out, and it is a thing of beauty. You take it apart, you pull the thing off, all the flaps fall out, and you take another piece off, and more flaps fall out, and it's just, it was beautifully put together. It'll win a Grammy.
For packaging.
But that's part of it too. Look what Paul did for a while. Sometimes the packaging was better than the bonus tracks he put out on like RAM or something. So that's part of it too. They want to win a Grammy on this.
And Rob and Chip both, I think you hit it very on the head, because in one of the interviews, Sean says, the Beatles didn't even win that many Grammys, and so maybe he had Grammy on the mind, but also. There's a couple of ways to think about it. First of all, Chip, I think the box sold out. I think the Cube sold out. So,
wow.
$13.50, that's a lot of money for a 40-pound Cube to sit somewhere. And look, it has a ton of content. And I personally wish they would, and maybe they will, who knows, on Record Store Day or something, because it's known to happen. I really would like the Zoetrope albums to come out separately. Because I think those are beautiful. Some of the best animations I've seen. I've seen it online where John.
I haven't seen them yet.
Oh, you wait till it's beautiful. It's the George Harrison ones they just put out. For the electronic. I call it electronic noise, electronic sound, and Wonderwall. Those are just not. They move, but they're nothing special. But this one actually has John dancing from the band shell from the city.
Okay.
So it's beautiful, and I do hope they do that. But even the box itself, the 6 CD 2 Blu-ray, the book is fantastic.
The book is magnificent.
Oh my goodness! This is probably the most comprehensive box we've gotten so far from the Lennon camp. I would have.
They're getting better as they go along.
Yes, absolutely. Now, content-wise, you can't ask for any more music. Unless there was something that we just haven't heard, that they left off. But they're giving us 72 tracks with 7 hidden tracks, a few videos. How much more can you ask for?
Mitch, strange question. I didn't have a chance to look at the hidden tracks thing that you sent over. And I was looking at my own box and couldn't figure out. But Does the Mind Games 45 mix appear anywhere?
No, the
Meat City does, but I don't
I'm
think
so sorry. That's not what I meant. Meat City. I'm
Yes.
sorry.
Yes,
Meat
yes,
City-
it's one of the bonus tracks.
It's
Okay.
one of the hidden tracks.
Okay,
Yeah,
just
one of the
making
hidden
sure.
tracks. Whatever you want to
But
look at.
that's the ultimate mix. I don't believe it's the original 45 mix.
Oh.
Well, it says by the LP on the backwards tape.
Check the album.
Yeah, check
Right.
the album.
Check the
Yeah.
album, yeah.
Yeah.
It does just say Meat City single. It doesn't say ultimate.
Yeah.
Oh, okay.
So that's
I
a good
believe,
thing.
Good.
Because,
Yeah.
yeah, I mean, look, we might as well just tell the extras right now because you're going to,
Well, before we start, I just wanted to say something else about the huge, the 18-pound box, whatever it is.
the cube.
18 kilograms.
The 18 kilograms, thanks. One thing about the book, it doesn't have a lot of Yoko in it. There's some things in there, but it's not, what I haven't seen the 18 kilogram thing, but it sounds like there's more Yoko in that. But
There's plenty of Yoko in the cube.
Yeah, but in the book itself, it doesn't have a lot of Yoko.
Right.
And I think,
yeah.
and
Well,
most people aren't going to have the cube, so.
Chip, do you see, I mean, when it comes to, obviously you're in a different place as a researcher also, but do you see yourself going back to the contents of I mean, I don't know how I'm a fan of a lot of Yoko's music, but I don't know how immersed I would find myself getting into the art side of her work. Do you see yourself going into the box a lot to say, I'm going to go back to it?
I feel like if I'm going to complete the additional volumes to the same level of detail, I need to have access to whatever's out there and what isn't out there. So yes, I feel I had to get the cube. I didn't have a choice, but I'm very pleased with it.
Yes,
and that would be 39.6832 pounds.
There you go.
I'm very close. So no, but I mean,
so you'll use it not only as a research tool, but you find you'll actually go into it. You'll actually take pieces from it to read or to
it's a pain in the ass to put back together.
That's what I was thinking. That's kind of what I was thinking.
It's a 2-person job, and my wife doesn't know I have it yet. So.
All right.
Has your wife seen?
We will not send her a link to this show.
No.
We will not send your wife a link.
Has not seen the credit card bill yet. So no, but you know what? That's another point I want to get into, because Sean talks about it, and I think it's very important. The puzzles, the games, the promotion they've done. There was a treasure hunt, Mind Games treasure hunt in Liverpool, July 5th or whatever. Sean said he wanted to do that purposely because Mind Games, it's a puzzle.
Yes.
And he wanted, but he wants people to play positive mind games with each other. That's what he said.
And my wife and I spent 2 hours with that damn Morse code. And everybody, there's a typo. There is a typo in the Morse code. So you talk about mind games. Talk about mind games, Sean.
God.
There's a typo in the Morse code, man. It was like, are you kidding me?
Oh, yeah.
So
it says wings over America.
It says, Stevie, we love you, right?
It says wildlife.
Wildlife.
One thing that is in the cube that you guys will not have seen yet is the actual Thames and Hudson book, which is coming out in September. There's a copy of that in there.
Well,
and there's a lot of
nice.
Yoko in there. And there's a lot of their artwork in there.
See, that's a little odd to me. And take this for what it is, but there's a great book in the obviously in the box set.
Yeah.
A great book. Do we need another book coming out separately for another 30, 40, whatever it is?
Do we
that?
Do we need so many of the very, very, very excellent Beatles books that cover essentially, quote, the same topic? There were only however many studio albums.
Time out.
But I know you're saying, well, it's solo versus Beatles.
No, not
I don't
at all.
think so.
Not at all. But every book that came out with the Beatles stuff, we didn't get a separate book.
No, I don't mean that, Mitch. I'm talking about the idea that, as Chip was saying, the book is now going to be available. The book that's in the Uber Deluxe is now going to be made available.
And it's part
Hey,
of the
it's-
Lennon template now is to
Yeah.
have the box and then to have the big standalone book. We had it for Imagine.
Yeah,
we
but
had it
also
for
part of the
Yeah.
template is that you find it in Ollie's discount store for $5. And I'm not being
True,
funny.
too.
Yeah, but all books end up, they make too many and then they sell
The
them by
remainders
pound.
and things like that.
Oh,
But
I
it's
understand.
but I'm talking about the idea that I think having the additional book like that. I think the only thing that may be a little frustrating for a collector who spends $1,400, 13 something on the ultra deluxe box, only to find that one of those books is now going to be available under separate charge somewhere else. And they could have, but I think having the additional,
But it doesn't say
is great.
exclusive for the cube in the
It doesn't.
in the
Okay.
credit.
Okay.
That's probably the only difference.
But
Yeah.
can I say
Oh,
something?
that's interesting.
Can I say something about the book? There is a difference between reading about it and having the music there. Some people might have it already, or they just want to read the book in a library. Because where do you put the box set in the library? Now, Anthony, you would know. Where it has 6 CDs in it, and it has a book.
And
So
Blu-ray.
where do you put it?
Truthfully, in a situation like that, we are probably circulating the book separately.
You see?
Honestly, we're probably
that might be
circulating
the
book.
thinking behind it, where in a store you might not see the box set, but you'll see the book, and there's a
Right.
difference.
Right.
So,
But yeah, but I think it's cool to have the multiple books. I don't,
more books
I-
the merrier.
yeah, I like that. I don't know.
I
I'm a
don't know.
librarian. I like books. Chip's an author. He likes books. We like.
Hopefully we can.
I'm a reader. I like books
We
too.
like books too.
Mitch is a writer too.
Yeah, but I don't read. So let's give a spoiler away. The
Chip,
cube,
cover your ears.
no, come on. The cube itself comes with an ultraviolet light. It does. Come on, Chip.
I haven't found it yet. I know it's in there, but I haven't looked for it yet.
You could, and now I will tell you, you can go on Amazon or wherever and buy an ultraviolet light for $4, $5, $9, whatever. If you have the actual, not the cube, but the CD DVD box, the deluxe box, turn it over, shine the light on the back, and you will find the place where you're supposed to see the 7 hidden tracks. All right, I'm not going to tell you where they all are. Go.
Wait a minute. Mitch, I'm just going to ask you, have you seen that depicted in a photo?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
I'm going to let that go. Because we have an ultraviolet light. I shined it repeatedly on the box, and there was nothing.
Yeah, there is. Rob, I sent it to you the other day.
He did.
There is
Okay.
definitely there. Now, again, there are.
Well, I got
7
gypped from a typo, and mine doesn't have writing on the back of the box. So
Well, I think your Morse code says you're screwed. No, but
Wow.
here's the 7 hidden tracks, and we'll talk about them later. I'm the Greatest Ultimate Mix, Rock and Roll People Ultimate Mix, Meat City Single Mix, because there was a single in the album mix. I'm the Greatest Evolution Mix, You Are Here, Take 4, Mellotron Magic / Weird Slide Guitar, which is 11 minutes of probably
Mellotron music and Weird Slide
of
Guitar.
Carnival of Light. And wouldn't that be funny if that was Carnival of Light? And then they stuck it on the blending box. And then Matchbox / That's All Right Mama / Heartbreak Hotel Jam. And there's no Heartbreak Hotel. So I don't care what anybody says.
Yeah, it's My Baby Left Me.
Yeah, exactly. But
oh,
there's
how
7
funny! So
hidden-
that was a mistake too, then, Chip, isn't it? That's a credit mistake.
Yeah.
So it's
Yeah.
my baby left me, never said a word.
And think of this. My Baby Left Me was improperly credited on Menlo Avenue as well.
that's true.
Oh
That's
my
right,
God,
right.
that's right.
They have a problem with that song.
Copyright control.
That's right. That's right. Yeah.
Wow.
But the hidden tracks, we'll talk about them. But a couple of them are on the EP that came out for Record Store Day.
Right, and there was also the thing on Uncut Magazine, which has "I'm the Greatest" in it too. So
Correct. Uncut Magazine. By the way, if you have not gotten the Uncut Magazine, it is brilliant. It is.
Has it hit stores there yet? It hasn't turned
I
up
haven't
here.
seen it here. I bought it from Uncut, but I did get it. It has a separate bag. Tony, did you get yours yet?
No.
It has a separate bag with the front cover, and then with an exclusive cover, and then you open it up, and the magazine has a different cover, and inside has the CD, which Uncut never usually has actual artist versions. They usually do covers.
Right.
And now there are 9 tracks, I believe. Was it 9 or 20? I forget. I think it was
9.
9.
I mean, and it's going to be a collector's item, obviously. But the one thing I will say about the Uncut, and people will agree with me, when you get the bag, first of all, they fold over the top because it's bigger than the magazine. So they fold over the top, so you have to unfold it. So right away, I'm not going to say devalues because I'm not selling it, but it makes it look less neat.
Does it have a sleeve, like a cover, like it was a CD? No, It's just a CD.
Yeah. So, okay. And then when you take it, if in order to take it out of this exclusive cover bag, it's not a bag. It's nice paper, but when you have to slit the top, and it's an unusual thing. They could have easily done a double cover, but it's an unusual bag, and but it's very well done. The content is incredible. So if you can find it in your store or order it online, back issues by the time this is uploaded, the Uncut magazine for Mind Games content is really very, very good.
Well, they've done a lot of promotion for this. You mentioned the thing in Liverpool. And you're right. Uncut does covers mostly, this has been. Yeah, I think there's been a lot of press on this. They didn't do as much, I don't think, for Imagine or Plastic Ono Band. Sean's been out there doing interviews.
He never does.
He's also much more in charge. I think was this the first one he was in charge of completely since Yoko is sort of retired?
I think Give Me Some Truth he was in charge of.
Okay, so
but those are two completely different things.
Right. So he's taken over on this, and I think he's proud of his work. And the questions I haven't seen, and Mitch, you've read more of his interviews than I have, is how is he learning about his father, listening to not just the songs, but just listening to his father talk to people.
Well, he's come out, and a lot of people have asked him not that question, but what surprised you about this album? Did you know about this album? Blah blah blah. And Sean has come out and said that this is one of his favorite albums. He considers it a masterpiece. All right. Now, I'm sure he's not just saying that because he wants it to sell. I'm sure Sean really thinks it's a masterpiece because I think it's quite good. Really good.
It might be my favorite Lennon solo record.
Well, yeah, I go to this a lot more than I go to, Plastic Ono, because I don't, unless I'm depressed and I want to.
Yeah, Plastic Ono Band's an amazing piece of art. If you need to hear that record, you have to hear that record. There's nothing else that's going to satisfy the need to hear that record. Imagine's a piece of art. You imagine there's a mood and a vibe to that record. Mind Games, I pretty much can throw on anytime I'm in the mood to just hear a good record.
Right. And the same thing with Walls and Bridges and Double Fantasy. So he was, I want to say evolving, but according to people, he was devolving because everybody said that, he got softer, but he got older and the business changed. So there was a difference in the whole vibe of who he was, who John and Yoko were, and as you said, Rob, we could get to a lot of these tracks in a minute. But I think Sean is out there because he knows that in 73, this didn't do as commercially well as everybody expected it to. All right. It went to number 9, ironically, in the US, and it went to number 13 in the UK. So it didn't do badly, and it did go gold, but gold for a Beatle, especially John Lennon, is
a given.
Yeah. It's a given, right? They could fart on a record and it would go gold. He had to do a little more than fart. But
okay.
No, I was going to say, but yeah, I think that's why I think that's why Sean is out there more accessible for this, because he wants people to understand that with this new mix, which we will get into, with this new mix, you could potentially have a difference of opinion from 50 something years ago. That's all.
Do you, Chip, you've listened through the whole set, obviously.
Yes.
And I'll throw this out to all of us. I mean, did you come away with any real different feeling about the album as a whole after having listened to the box than you had before? Did it shed any real light for you, or was it kind of you walked away feeling the same way you had felt about the record before?
Song-wise, I felt pretty much the same way, but production-wise, there are two unsung heroes on this record, and that's Sneaky Pete and Gordon Edwards. And those guys just knock it out of the park on this record.
Yeah.
Well,
Rob, I mean,
Gordon's a different type of bass.
Got lost on vinyl.
Right, but Gordon's also a different type of bass player than the Klaus Vormans of the time. So, he's playing more funk.
I found oddly enough, that because I was talking to Mitch about this early, but I found that Mind Games, the quote ultimate mix, the opening track, I felt like Gordon's bass was actually less punchy on this new one. Growing up, I always remember on Mind Games hearing that that beautiful work that Gordon's doing under there. It had punch. And I find that that's one thing I was a little bit disappointed in, that on the title track, Mind Games, I felt like Gordon, that Sean brought Gordon down in the mix, which was a little surprising,
Well, Sean did that with a couple of things. The vocals from Something Different are lower. Obviously the saxophone at One Day at a Time.
Chip just threw in "Thank goodness."
I like,
but he also just there's a little bit of lowering where there's certain things I guess Sean likes that he's putting onto the record, and I'm hoping that it matches the recording.
I look at it
what Sean likes.
Okay, Chip.
I was going to say one of Sean's goals with these Ultimate packages and with the Give Me Some Truth collection is he wants to present mixes with John's voice to the fore and more untreated.
Yeah.
So he's kind of set that template in stone as well. So he's got to go that's how these mixes are going to end up. And that might be why we have so many different ones.
And it's always just to keep in mind, just like with everything that's gone on with the Giles Martin remixes, it's not like they're taking the original mix away. It's not like we're not going to hear the original mix of Mind Games if someone wants to hear it. So, to me, I think the fact that people are so freaked out about the removing the sax from One Day at a Time. I get it. I get being wigged out by that. But at the same time, it's not like we can't hear the other one. You must never hear that evil saxophone again.
Yeah. But something? The first time I heard it, I was at the listening party. I'm so used to hearing it, but there's this keyboard thing at the end where it's like a sustained keyboard.
Yeah.
And I know why he took that out. He heard the sustained keyboard and said that's the way the song could end or should end.
Sure.
And the saxophone seems like it was a goof thing, and then they left it in.
But again, once you're, I don't want to get too far into this because I want to talk about each track. But I will say that usually, in general, Beatle fans don't get a lot of sax, so you can't take it away.
Oh,
boo!
But boo me. Let's get into the box. All right. So the first disc is the remix. The second disc is the Elemental. The third disc is the Elements, and we'll get into these. The fourth disc is the Evolution. The fifth is the raw mixes, and the sixth is the outtakes. Right off the bat, I will tell you, I started to get a little bit of ear fatigue when you hear 72 tracks in the order they are, because a lot of times they didn't do that with the Beatles in the beginning. But chronologically, you get 1, 2, forgetting about the hidden tracks right now. You get 1 through 12 6 times. So it does get a little upsetting when you hear it if you're sitting down to listen to it, all you do get a little ear fatigue from everything. You have to really break this up because there's a couple of times when you are here is 9, 10, 11 minutes, and it doesn't become a 40-minute album anymore. Now it becomes over an hour or so, and it does take up a lot of your time. That being said, let's go through the first disc. We're not going to go through every disc. We're going to tell pretty much what each intention of each disc is, and if something stuck out to all of us, let's talk about it. But let's talk about the remix itself, if you don't mind. So the first track, and Tony, you alluded to it already, is Mind Games. And Chip, you alluded to it as well, that the intention of Sean is to really focus on and showcase John's voice. Mind Games here, to me, and we'll go around the room, I think sounds beautiful. I want to say the Ultimate Box actually sounded a little better. To me, it sounded more ethereal, like with the organ. But on the remix, it sounds beautiful. I don't think this is the best mix out there. That's all, guys.
I'll go. I thought it was actually. I thought John's voice is really great in this this version.
The voice is.
I was very impressed.
The vocal in every song is great.
Yeah, but this one hit me. It's the first song, but it hit me right away that this is going to be a different type of mix because the vocals were so perfect for this song. I thought I was very impressed with. Now we'll get to the other mixes, but I was very impressed with the whole thing with the ultimate mix, as they're now calling it, of this whole album. And Mind Games is a great thing to start off with. Of course, it's the first song, but you know what I'm saying.
Yeah. Chip?
There's something else to take into account on the mixes also is that 4 of the 6 discs are mixed in Atmos and the other 2 are in 5.1.
Right.
And it's incredible to hear one of those in the proper setting, the Atmos.
Yeah, but how many people can hear it in Atmos?
That's right. You're right.
That's the unfortunate. 5.1, obviously, a lot more people can.
Absolutely.
That's right.
And it will fold down. The Atmos mix will fold down into a surround mix.
Yeah.
But
okay. Okay, that's
just
kind of
that, you know what? It's just that I appreciate that they do that. Because obviously they're aiming for younger fans who are listening.
Yeah, but they're also aiming for audiophiles though too, Mitch.
Yes,
I mean,
of
our
course.
friend Barry. Barry will get disappointed if an album's remastered at this point and there's not either a 5.1 or an Atmos.
Right.
It's actually like upsetting to him. It's like, why bother in 2024 if you're not going to do?
Well, I agree. 5.1 should be a given, and Mr. McCartney should be listening to that.
Well, that's why they were upset with Revolver, because it didn't include a DVD of 5.1.
When I went to the listening party, they played it in Atmos, and there were things that you were hearing that I didn't hear as much on the Ultimate mix, but in the room, and it's playing loud, it sounded really good. There's little guitar pits all over the place that I noticed.
So, Chip, go ahead. You were still saying, you were saying about the mix.
Just that they've offered us how many alternatives here. We can listen to the stereo version of the Ultimate mixes. We can listen to the Atmos version of the Ultimate mixes. Yeah. I think that they have the same feel to them, but it's just the spread on the
expanse. For me, the one thing that I notice is that the way Mind Game sounds now, it sounds more like a singer-songwriter album. Production-wise, I was listening to it and I'm saying, this is what like a John Hyatt record sounds like, or that vocal is brought up real strong. I don't think there's anything wrong with that. There are a few moments where John's voice is up so loud that it does sacrifice the other instruments a little. I think another thing that I was observing, maybe it's just me, so guys jump on me if it is, but I feel like it's probably Plastic Ono Band was the whole Janov thing. Imagine had some wonderful. This was to me John's best pop vocals since the Beatles, but very different feel. I feel like post Janov, John's voice has actually changed. I'm listening to elements in John's singing, and I'm thinking, would John have sounded this way in this type of piece of music during the Beatle years? And I feel like his pop approach to pop music singing, there was one thing that I wrote that said, well, that's really Beatle-y, and I forgot where it was. But there was one vocal in particular on one of the versions where my thought was like, wow, yeah, that's a Beatles vocal. Oh, yeah, Aisumasen. Oh, yeah, one of the I Knows was also, but I said disc.
Well, that's I've got a feeling.
Right. In disc 4, Aisumasen, I wrote, it starts off like a different song. It's basically a Beatles song. Then it takes on a country-ish vibe and the new lyrics and, but I feel like John's voice throughout this whole box is so superb, but it's also not Beatle John so much, which I thought was interesting. I felt like it's it's the John that went forward to Walls and Bridges but I felt like it's a slightly different vibe to the voice.
Because we never, well, Tony, you know what? Other than Julia, all right, where did we get this type of sounding John vocal with the Beatles? I mean, Julia, I'm not even going to say Dear Prudence or In My Life, because they're not the same vocal tone as like Julia and I Know, or You Are Here, or Aisumasen. It's a different vibe, and we didn't really get that in the Beatles, at least from what I'm remembering. So,
but you can apply, whatever voice you have as a vocalist. I mean, I'm not John Lennon, but as a singer, you can apply your voice, what you have, the instrument that you're working with, in different ways with different types of songs, with different types of vibes, vibes to tunes and air quotes. But you're always going to sound like you. I think with John, it's not that he doesn't sound like John, but there's a post Janov, it sounds like there's a slightly different voice at work there, which I don't know if it's maybe from screaming your lungs out for, I don't know.
Or it could be the mics at EMI versus the mics at
Bingo.
Ascot.
I also think
Bingo. That's a really good point too, Chip, and record plant.
And the record plant. But I also think that John, one thing when he was with the Beatles, he had Paul with the harmony vocal, and I think
true too.
If I when I was hearing I know, I'm thinking, damn, this is such a great place for Paul to be singing with him. I mean, there's other songs you could.
That's a hidden track, man. That's
you're familiar with the underground demos of I Know, where he's double and triple tracked his vocals on them, just so he can find out the harmonies. And that was another thing when he would record, is the song that he felt he had the most complete, that was ready to go, would always be the first one that he recorded.
Interesting. Right. That makes sense. All right. I'll throw this out though, Chip. Knowing what we know about what's out there in the underground, is it, and we've joked with it with Guy from Apple, and Guy has said, in no uncertain terms, I don't care what's out there in bootleg land. I don't care, but do you think that it would have been nice to have, if you're going to do 6 discs, do a disc with this theme to it, and then 10 seconds of silence, and then, here's a bunch of cool stuff that it's been floating around the underground for years and years. And let's sort of give something that, if you're going to do this level of completism, why not eliminate the need for to go chase the underground stuff as a collector?
I think it's great what they've done with the Lennon sets, is they have shot around what's out there. Yeah. So we have even more material now when we combine the two of them.
Yeah, true too.
But I think they've done that on the Beatles stuff too.
Absolutely. But do you miss the idea of them not having taken some of these things that, as bootleg collectors, you go, I love this strange version of fill in the blank.
We're never going to get everything, though.
No, but like for instance, and I'm just going to ask because I don't know, but there's supposedly a bunch of footage. I know it's some of the footage that he used in the, like you said, that open reel video and stuff. There are other song run throughs on those, some of which are from earlier albums. And is there a reason why? Like, did they just find that material? Did the Lennon estate just get their hands on that material?
We're talking about two different sets of videotapes here. I think that the ones that we're seeing on the Blu-rays here were taken from Tony Cox's Portapack.
Right.
Yeah. And the stuff that showed up in the was it I Know, the one, or was it Aisumasen that showed up online that had the 6 or 7 different,
I think it was I Know,
reels going on at the same time.
Yeah. I'm talking about the Tony Cox. The Tony Cox. There's more. There was more music on those.
Yes.
If I'm not mistaken.
There's some more music on there.
Yeah. So why was that not used in other boxes? Or did they just get that material?
They've had that material for some time now, but like I alluded to before, I think they were trying to fill in the cracks.
Yeah.
I also think that, this isn't the final release of some of this Mind Game stuff, or the Plastic Ono Band, or the Imagine. And I think that's part of the thing. There's only so many songs they can go to put out. So, maybe in a couple of years, or maybe in 5 years or 10 years, whenever they finish up, they say, okay, we have these. It's like some bootlegs I've seen where they'll have like 20 versions of Love. Well, most people don't want to hear 20 songs of the same song in a row.
Well, they're silly.
Well, what I mean.
I'd love to have the full session tapes.
But a lot of people, not everyone will, or
You're absolutely
not everyone's
right.
us. We love it.
You're right,
but it depends on how they release it. It depends on what Sean wants to do.
For John's 100th birthday, they're just going to have John show up as a hologram in your house and play the album for you. That's just what they'll do.
Don't
what?
say
That would be
too loud.
That would be fun if that happened.
You know what, though? 2 things. First of all, March 5th, 1963, I can listen to every one of those takes of One After 909 and Thank You, Girl. I don't care. I love that. Would I be as tolerant for solo stuff? Maybe not, but I wouldn't turn it down. Again, I love all the solo stuff, but the other thing we have to remember, guys, and then we'll get back to the track, is that the Beatles have been gone as a group for 54 years as of the recording of this show. John Lennon has been gone as a human being for 44 years.
Yep.
All right. Sean is trying to do a very difficult thing in keeping John's limited catalog going. And it's unfortunate that he only don't count. I'm not counting anything prior to Plastic Ono. Okay, we know Life with the Lions, all that stuff. I'm just saying, how many albums is that? 6, 7, whatever it is, including rock and roll and
Sure. 7.
Right. So it's very difficult to please everybody. And you're right, Rob. Maybe we'll keep getting this continuum of once they finish rock and roll and Walls and Bridges and Double Fantasy and even Milk and Honey, if they don't combine those two. And maybe we'll get more Plastic Ono Band, as not only as a completist thing, but for the next generation, because by that time it might be 10 or 15 years from now.
Right.
Because that'll be, 60 years since John's been gone from this earth, and most people might forget. So, maybe we'll keep getting a full wheel of his catalog ongoing.
I have an unrelated but related question, and I'll throw this out, and Chip, if you have any insider knowledge, but are we saying with the Mind Game box now happening, is the Sometime in New York City box dead in the water, or are we going to see that at some point?
My feeling on the Sometime in New York City box is they use some of it here in the Mind Game set.
Okay.
I think there's some material there, and I've got a feeling they're going to tie it into this 1-to-1 film
Bingo.
that's coming out.
Okay.
That
Well,
they're
there's
not,
the one
they
that-
can't release it as is because of that.
We know.
But
But you
they
know,
can release it with the live stuff and tie it into this movie. And yeah, here's the studio stuff as well.
I was going to say the rehearsals. I mean, we've got, the rehearsals some of it is a lot of fun.
But I don't want to get into this because it's a separate topic.
But it's also, you got the 1-to-1, you got the Mike Douglas film that's coming out about the same time. That's when you would sneak it in if you're going to put it out.
We might not see it standalone, but I think we'll eventually get the material.
Yeah.
I do think that one word, obviously we know what we're talking about, is preventing a lot of it's creating, to me, it seems like it's creating something that the narrative they're trying to push is against. You don't want to, kids nowadays, and especially with the way this country is today, you can't take John's explanation and just say that's the explanation.
Right. It's not
it's not as cut and dry as when John, said it on the Mike Douglas show, right? So
Dick Cavett.
Dick Cavett, sorry. So, they may edit that out. They may edit, all of that.
No, you can't edit it out.
You can't edit it out.
You never know. Anyway, let's get back to Mind Games.
Anyway.
So let's get to the second track, Tight As. And to me, this is John being really fun. Even the title itself, Tight As, Tight Ass, come on. This is typical John Lennon humor. I love this song because it's fun. It's fun to sing. And it's just a great rollicking track. I think his voice, again, is very up in the mix here. And I think some of the other mixes from the other discs really show the musicianship on this one too. Mm-hmm. But I really enjoyed this mix. In general, I think it's really good.
There's some fun on here. I like in the outtakes when he starts with the look, we ain't got past 1959, okay? Which is just a great line. But on the Evolutionary mix, when you hear that, you hear it start out as beef jerky.
Yes.
Basically, which is really fun. The disc 3 though, like some of the versions on disc 3 and Tight Ass included, you listen on disc 3 and you say, if you played it for someone who was a pretty, a Lennon fan, really, they wouldn't be able to identify the track. They'd hear the first minute and go, what? I think I know that.
Yes.
But still wouldn't get it. On the Elementals mix, I love the fact that it comes around like he's a songwriter sitting in a circle playing a tune for a bunch of other songwriters. Like there's this certain like sitting around the campfire version of on the Elementals mix of that track. But I felt like on the Ultimate mix, I felt like with both this and Meat City, I think you lost some balls. I just have to say honestly, I think the Ultimate mix, when Meat City comes on the original mix of this record, it punches you in the face. When Tight Ass kicks in, it punches you right in the face. I feel like on the Ultimate mix, it's all well and good, but the cojones are not quite there, I think.
I like the part, I forgot which one it was in, where he said, play like Scotty Moore.
Yes.
And I didn't think about that style. I've always thought that it was based on She's About a Mover by the Sir Douglas Quintet.
Ooh.
It has that feel, but then the faster versions, it does sound like more of an Elvis song with Scotty Moore playing on it.
Yeah.
And Chet Atkins in there too.
Yeah.
Oh, definitely Chet Atkins.
And so he did slow it down for the actual album version, because I really liked when he started to kick it in. And it's like, damn, that's a different song than the version we ended up with. Well, I don't mind the song. It's just, we got the joke on the first verse,
Yeah. Now we should say the difference between the Elemental and the Elements is the Elemental, you get parts of music and you do get vocals, where the Elements, you don't you may get a vocal, but you don't. Usually you get just an element or two or three of the song itself. So for Tight As on the Elements disc, for me, the pedal steel was just wild. I mean,
Yeah,
But Chip was saying, yeah, that's Sneaky Pete.
I
That
love
is my
that.
favorite
I mean,
track on the entire box.
yeah,
Wow.
it's so cool to hear when you're, and if you're listening to this if you're listening to, especially the Elements disc, if you're listening as background music while you're working, while you're doing something else, I stopped so many times to look at what song was playing because I was like, what? I never noticed that in there. And what?
Yeah.
What? Wait, am I going in order? I'm like, I tried to sing the song, with the Elements parts, and sometimes I couldn't do it. It was so cool in that regard. So Tight As was one of the, the big ones there in Elements. I think it was amazing. So,
Well, Sneaky
go ahead,
Pete
Chip.
was an overdub. He wasn't there for any of the tracking.
Really,
And what's really cool about let me make sure I'm saying the right one here.
that's why he was sneaky.
The Elements version, you have one of his overdubs in the left channel, and you've got his other one in the right.
Oh, cool.
And it's just fascinating. And they do this, and to jump ahead, they do the same thing on Meat City with
Yes.
Keltner Murata.
Yeah.
Jim's in one channel and Rick's in the other. So I think it's great that they gave us that because it's so strong on its own. But Tight As there's so much going on in there guitar wise.
Yes.
And as a frustrated guitarist, it's just, gotta love Mind Games, but Tight As is just the one that I'll always jump to. That and Meat City.
There you go.
Let's go to Aisumasen, I'm Sorry. I have to tell you, this is my favorite song on the album. It could possibly be my top 3 Lennon solo songs of all time. First of all, the soul of the guitar at the end is just, it goes on for over a minute. That's a long solo, and it ends the song. It doesn't come back into anything. So that takes guts to do, by the way. And let me tell you something, the beauty of it, and what I love about this box is that they actually give you in the Evolution mix, you get the first intention of the song, which I love. It was a totally different meaning. He was comforting someone, and now it became he was apologizing to someone.
Yep.
Because he said, I'll be there for you, and then he says, I'm sorry. And so I found that so moving that he, and again, we don't know what was in John's head. Well, we probably do. But we don't know at that point what was in his head, why he was comforting, who he needed to comfort or who he needed to apologize for. We could assume, but the song itself, when you hear even the Evolution, it doesn't start out as such like it does on the final Ultimate Mix. This song blows me away every single time. I love it. I love the Ultimate Mix. I just think it's one of John's. I didn't like it when I was a kid when it came out because I was 11 when this came out. I didn't enjoy it. I love it now. I've loved it for the past 40 something years. It's just an amazing track in general. And this box with all of the different 6 versions of it does it incredible justice.
I was kind of hoping that, like Sneaky Pete's 2 overdubs, we would have gotten both of Spinoza's solos.
Yeah,
he did it twice. He did 2 independent solos, and John was blown away by him. And he said he had a hard time deciding what parts to use.
Mm.
And when I talked to Spinoza a while back, he was saying that he wanted a copy of it. He didn't have a copy of his solos on
Really?
that, and one of those underground titles does have both concurrently, and that's probably why it didn't show up on the box because they clash a lot.
Yeah.
The different
Yeah.
styles. They're not like Sneaky Pete's, which is kind of a bed, but these are, very well thought out and executed solos.
Yeah. So what did you think of the track in general across all discs?
About Aisumasen?
Yeah.
Oh, it's another one that came from, some leftover bits from 1971 with "Call My Name" and
Right.
the clock film. It's a great track. It's not one of the iffy compositions on the album.
Yeah.
I agree, but we always talk about how an album is, plotted, and "Tight Ass" shouldn't have been the second track.
Well,
Look at Imagine. You've got the anthem that starts it out. You got Mind Game starts with the anthem. You've got Crippled Inside.
Right.
And we go to Tight Ass. So you got the Cock Rocker.
Yeah.
And then we go to An Apology to Yoko.
Well, it is
It's
an
the third
apology
track on
song for
Imagine.
Yoko. And you forget, I forgot, about this album, that there's a lot of apology songs to Yoko, and we know why now, but we didn't know it then.
Right.
I've read something interesting about I Know, but I won't, I mean, I know. I don't know I haven't read the book yet. And Chip, I don't know if you ever, grace over this concept or idea, but I had a buddy of mine.
I know.
Well, no, because you're talking about a lot of apologies to Yoko on air.
Well, we're going to get to I know.
Well, I know. But, but I don't know if that's about Yoko. I've heard someone pointed out to me why it could absolutely be about Paul, and I thought that was great. But anyway, so
Wow.
So go ahead.
I didn't know.
No, well, go ahead, Mitch. Next song.
It's interesting, when John was out shopping for song titles for this album, that they were having a sale on parentheses.
That's very good.
Very good. Very good.
Almost as good as Mullet of Kintyre.
Chip, welcome to the show.
Yeah,
Welcome to the show.
You are now anointed.
Anyway. All right. So anyway,
Rob, you had talked about. I'm sorry, Rob.
Yeah, I did. I like it. I wish I could pronounce the word in Japanese. Every time I try, I can't pronounce it.
Aisumasen.
Aisumasen.
Yeah, okay, nice try.
Okay.
Just say I'm sorry. That's all.
When I'm on the air, I say I'm sorry, and then I say there was a Japanese word before it I can't say.
Nice.
Yeah. Well, what am I going to do?
And then next up is the B-side of Elton John's. Actually, Elton John did a B-side of on Lucy in the Sky, One Day at a Time. I've always liked this. It's a cute song, but I wish in the all of the discs, I wish that he would have actually. There's no falsetto in the Evolution, and I wish he would have tried to work it out without the falsetto, because it comes off a little childish, sort of like "I'm Your Angel" on Double Fantasy.
see, I feel like the song doesn't find its way as anything incredibly unique until he hits the falsetto.
Oh, see,
I think it's a lovely song.
No, he hits the falsetto from the start.
No. Where I'm going is, in other words, if you listen to all the other versions, I enjoy it. I think it's a lovely song. I've thought about the idea of, now I could actually cover this, and just do it in the lower register, and you don't think about it. But I think that it didn't hit its uniqueness as a, wow, this is a real sweet John Lennon track, until he did it in the falsetto and kind of takes on that, I won't say childlike aspect, but there's a certain prettiness to it.
McCartney-esque.
Yeah, I don't know.
McCartney could have done it without falsetto, though.
I wouldn't call him McCartney-esque.
No, I'm not saying the song itself.
Different. Totally. I honestly, I feel like that's apples and oranges. I can't think of there.
But McCartney wouldn't have had to hit falsetto to do it. He could have done it in his normal voice in that key.
Sure.
That's all I'm saying.
I like the song a lot, but I like it without the falsetto. I really appreciated it as a song, just with the chords and the arrangement. When it goes too high as a falsetto, it's like, okay, I know what he's doing there, and he's got the background vocalist there that helping out. So, it's a slow song to begin with. So, the demo or the earlier versions are pretty cool. I like that a lot. So, I've changed my mind on the song a little bit. Not that I hated it, but you know what I mean.
Yeah.
What did you think, Chuck?
I think that the use of the falsetto was terribly ill-conceived, and I think it's made even worse when you add something different on it, who are kind of they're kind of in a falsetto themselves, and it just sounds very trite. And we've got this version of him where he's singing in the normal register, just electric piano, drums, bass.
That's very sweet.
And that's the one for me.
Yeah, I like that version.
I do agree. I would love to have heard something different stripped out in the falsetto version. That's a good point.
But I also would have tried. I would have loved if he would have continued to try to find the lower register. I don't think he was finding the right key. I think if he would have tried to raise it a little more than he originally did, he might have found John Lennon's regular voice for this song.
Yeah, and then he sings it a little bit in a couple of spots on a couple of versions, and he's sort of finding his way. But it is the version with the electric piano is very sweet. But I enjoy the false. I just think it's something different.
Let me ask you, Tony. You're a big Elton John fan. What do you think of Elton's version? Supposedly John's on it, but I don't hear him on it.
John's not on it.
Yeah, that was the rumor. What did you think, Tony, about it?
I always loved. I mean, I have to be very blunt. I heard Elton's version first.
Yes.
Oh, okay.
Because I own the single.
Yeah, I owned the single of Lucy in the Sky before I owned Mind Games.
Yeah, see, I didn't. I owned it after, so I was like, "Oh, I like that better."
Yeah, so
I like Elton's better than John's.
Yeah,
I love such an unusual choice for Elton to pick that version, but that song.
Yeah.
But,
I think he was just paying tribute to John for both. Because that's. Those are two non-LP. It's a non-LP single.
Right. Yeah. No, I agree.
And Keith Moon had already taken "Move Over, Mizelle," so kidding. Anyway, well, I'm not.
I'll get blamed for this, but I prefer Elton's take on Lucy and Elton's take on One Day at a Time better than the originals.
Nice.
I'm sorry.
Welcome to the show again.
I'm sorry, Chip, you have to leave now.
No, there's another Elton head in the room here, man.
But Lucy in the Sky to me is blasphemy. But I'm just.
Oh, I love that.
You're entitled to your opinion, even if it's wrong.
Reggae change at the end, man. That's wrong. So fun.
Even if it's wrong, exactly.
Even if it's wrong.
So let's go to Bring on the Lucy, Free to People. This could have easily been on Sometime in New York City, obviously because of the subject matter. I've always disliked this song for some reason. I've always disliked this song.
I love this song.
Weird.
This is my favorite song on the album. It has a sense of humor that Sometime in New York City didn't have, and it's much more political than many of the songs on Sometime in New York City. Yes. Stop the killing now.
It doesn't fit on here.
It doesn't, but where else are you going to put it?
It's the last song on a side.
Yeah.
Yeah. It's like it's like Here We Go Again. That's a great song too, but that wasn't placed anywhere near.
But you could have put Rock and Roll People on instead of Bring on the Lucy.
No.
Nah.
I like Rock and Roll People.
You're saying it now, but in hindsight,
Rock and Roll
People in 1973 or whenever you got it, Rock and Roll People would be the song on the album, not Free to People.
Not to be funny, but you still got Free to People, Rock and Roll People, Only People. He liked parentheses and people.
Why didn't he just have Barbara Streisand sing it?
people.
But it's a good song and it's a rocker. It's sort of John's last shot at politics as a musician. And, I think it was there also to remind people, hey, I still care about this stuff. But it's a much more poppy song, and that's why that could have been a second single.
Oh, I don't think so.
Oh, I think so. But and you know what I also love about it in the book? There's on the page where it says "Bring on the Lucy," when they're talking about it, they talked about how they were recording stuff of John and Yoko's because they thought the government, and they turned out to be true, was recording their phone calls. So there's a thing where they talked about, remember when John and Yoko were going to go out and tour in 72? And they talk about, which I never knew, and it's such a great thing, they were going to go into town, wherever they were playing, and the money they raised from the concert, some of it was going to pay bail for people who were in jail who couldn't afford bail.
Yeah.
Can you
That is
imagine doing that nowadays and what I think that'd raise?
Oh my God. But it's a great idea because it takes people who are in jail for the wrong reasons that they can't get out because they have no money for the bail. It's a very cool thing. And I never knew that until I read this. And I wish, they have it from a tape, and maybe because Alan Klein's on it, but, and Jim Keltner's on it too. But it would have been nice to hear them say this because it's such a caring thing to pay for someone's bail if you can't afford it. So I was very impressed with that in the book, and it's one of the great things in the book. But I love the song, and I think it just sounds fantastic. I just love the song. So
now, pardon my complete Beatle geek missing this situation here, but the title of the track, "Bring on the Lucy."
I don't know what that means.
John didn't either. In a couple other conversations, some people have referred to it being Lucifer.
666 is your name. Oh,
Yeah.
hell. Never, no pun intended. Because part of me thought he was, all I could think about was like, where was he going? Bring on the what's Lucy? Sure, Lusitania, but Lucifer.
Lucre. I mean, is it
Lucre? Yeah. Wow. Sure. Filthy Lucre. Wow. That's interesting.
But that is another Sometime in New York City song. That was written in December 71.
Yeah.
And on an open-tuned National Steel guitar. Which is why it's so simple, why it's just EABA over and over and over.
It is the Element. Is it the Element version, or one of the versions is a little rough because it's kind of just sort of like, okay, this should go somewhere.
Oh, I think the Elements version. I think the Elements version has nice background vocals.
Well, I actually.
It starts off. One of the versions starts off with something different quartet.
I love the outtake. I thought that the outtake version even has a little bit more like gravitas than the album version, the final album version. A little bit less balls.
Yes,
but the outtake has some really nice gravitas. Again, I found the Ultimate Mix took the balls away, but.
Really? I didn't get that.
A little bit.
Liked it, so.
Yeah, but anyway. Okay, so next.
Yeah,
hold on. Next, we have to just be quiet.
Yeah, right. For 4 seconds.
Now, are we going to get, if we do that, are we going to get hit by Yahoo for doing a cover? Well, anyway, whatever.
What's interesting and really pedantic at this point is that the track is timed out as being 3 seconds long. But if you look at the way that it's cut on the U.S. album, it's 14 seconds long.
Right.
Wow.
Which might be.
That's interesting.
I did not.
And on a CD, am I correct in saying that on a CD, it's difficult to press a 3 second track? You've got to go to 4.
There is a limit. And
there's a Red Book issue. Oh, it is 2 seconds. Okay, because it used to be years ago.
There is a Red Book issue with it. Okay. Yes.
And which is wild, but we should say on the outtakes there is 1 minute and 40 whatever of them reading the Declaration.
Yes.
So you should, if they do list the track and it is there banded on every CD, but again,
there's a 24 second silence.
What was that, Jeff?
There's 72 silent tracks at the end of disc 1.
Yeah.
No, there are. It's weird.
You think they would have put something in there?
And they're all the same length.
Which everybody keeps asking about. Has anybody experienced this? Yes.
Yeah, we have. It was done.
But is that a mistake?
Wow, that's really funny.
That's another puzzle that we probably haven't figured out yet.
Yeah. What's 72 times 4? What's 72 divided by 4? 4 seconds, 72. Anyway.
18.
No, thank you. Anyway, let's get to side 2. Intuition. Again, I don't understand how people keep saying this album is mediocre. I mean, Intuition is a great album opener.
Side
there you go. Side Mind Games was originally side 2 was side 1 of the album.
Right.
Oh, really? So
Yeah.
Intuition was going to be the album
It's going
opener.
to be the opener. Mind Games was going to open side 2.
And it would have been perfect.
Yep. Yeah,
It's a
well, I think it
great-
would have been
the
just
bass-
fine.
The bass line, line into it is just beautiful. And I think this is a great track. The only thing I will say is that in the ultimate mix, after every time when Intuition, he goes, that in the ultimate mix sticks out so much. I feel like it's almost too much, where they should have lowered it, or if you're taking anything out, take that out, because every time I hear it now, I'm going, I mean, it's a little, I'm not kidding.
I think of a Princess Bride and to blame.
Yes.
Well, on All Things Must Pass, and now you could hear where he goes, "Oh, Sir Frankie Chris."
Yeah.
So it's like, was he trying to emulate what Danny did? Because it's too high up in the mix. It's like Intuition. It's like, oh, come on. So that's the only thing I don't like, but I love the song in general. And I think other than that little thing, I think the mix is really good.
And it's also a very, very poppy song.
This could have been a single.
That was
And-
kicked around as single number 2.
Was it?
But I don't
Gordon,
know
the
that there
bass
was ever
player-
a number assigned to it,
Yeah.
Okay.
but that was under discussion as being the second single.
And Gordon bass playing on that is so fantastic.
Oh, it's so
Just
good.
the way it kicks in with his bass, that little thing where it goes down the neck.
Yeah.
That's perfect, man. It's
really brilliant. I do like it a lot.
I like on the Elementals version again. It comes off as very tropical. It's got a tropical vibe to it.
Well, side 2 basically has a tropical vibe.
Yeah, a few
true.
songs on that side have a tropical vibe. On the outtakes disc, the mix is a little bit. I wrote a little dirty, but that's okay. And then in the evolutionary mix, it's cool to hear because that evolutionary run through, you hear sort of like a lot of John's attitude during the sessions. You hear kind of, people talking about, well, he didn't know where his head was at. And then, you know what? He was having issues with his wife. This new person was kind of come into his life, and so yeah, okay, his head was in some weird places, but the guy's a musician. He was always a musician. His head was in some real weirder spaces when he was with the Beatles. So it's kind of like, what do you say? Well, John was in a weird space, so he didn't make great music or didn't approach the music with a great attitude. His attitude during the session sounds like he's doing perfectly fine.
great. And I do wish there was more just chatter from the sessions.
But in Playboy, he did say that Intuition, it failed as a song. He said
wrong.
it was a good lick, but he just couldn't get the words to make sense.
And we always know that John was always so good at summarizing his own work and how
Yeah.
Yeah, exactly.
Please.
I roll a lowly. Anyway, so
Chip, what was
your impression?
Yeah.
I don't think I have much more to paint the spill on this one. I think you guys have kind of hit it. It's a great upbeat song, and it would have made another single. And I don't think I believe, and I was just trying to check this out. John played the clavinet on that song.
Okay.
Did he?
Okay.
Which
And that's-
might be in all the books now, but
But that's such a nice feel on that.
yeah.
It is.
No, I
Such a
agree.
nice feel on that.
It does.
It's cool.
Again, we say John is one of the most kick-ass rhythm guitarists in the world of music, and we don't really give him a lot of credit like we do Paul with for being a multi-instrumentalist. Unfortunately,
True.
and he did play a lot, and I know he said he wasn't a good piano player, he wasn't a good this player. He was so modest because he really was good.
Yeah.
Anyway, so Out the Blue. This always reminded me of Sexy Sadie. The background vocals, wow,
Maybe.
always reminded me of Sexy Sadie. I never really enjoyed this a lot. It's okay. It's a little too mellow for me. The ultimate mix sounds good. A lot of the, other ones sound really good on this. There's a brilliant piano on the Elemental mix.
Oh God,
the
that
Elemental mix, that piano. I'm like, I can
Ken
listen to
Asher,
that
man.
all day.
I when I first heard that, I was I said, wow, I never really noticed it like this.
Right.
I was so impressed with that part of the song, and it's mixed in pretty well in the regular version. But standing alone, that could be like a song in a movie, just as background music. It was that good.
Yeah, it was really good.
I was very impressed with that. Out of the Blue has grown on me tremendously over the years. It's a great realization type of song about what's happened in your life, or at least in John's life, but it could obviously be taken for other people's life too. So I'm very impressed with the piano. I'm very impressed with everything I heard about that song in this box set. So
if it was
great
George, it would
lyrics
be
on
about
it.
God.
Oh, wait, hold on. What was that, Chip? Sorry.
I was going to say some great lyrics on it. Long, slow knife. I mean,
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah. And there's a. Oh, go ahead. Sorry, Chip.
I was just going to say he's on clavinet again on this one.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah, and you again, it's that not necessarily tropical, but there's like a reggae thing going on this too.
there you go. On the outtake disc.
Yeah.
Yes.
But it's very reggae. Thanks to Gordon.
And yes. Oh my God. I on all the different versions I just wrote, and again, gorgeous bass. And again, like he just is over the top on this track, and it's, and again, it's not like the first time. I mean, ska, reggae, whatever, that was in John's blood, I think. So I sometimes find it fascinating that it didn't come out on a fully produced record until, but anyway, so
the next one is Only People. Now, I'll be honest with you. I think this should have been the second single, because this song is so bouncy. I mean, you hear it on the Elements. You hear that bouncing keyboard on the Elements disc. And in the Evolution disc, it's totally different.
But fully formed, though.
Yeah,
fully formed. Like he's got the idea of it fully formed.
Yes, but I think in 1973, because that's obviously when it would have come out, I think it would have been a perfect single to be the second single. Maybe, and then whatever, if you want, I don't know.
Well, actually, it would have been 74 because Mind Games was the first single. So
right.
And the album came out in November. So most likely beginning of 74.
We're still talking about a good bouncy rock track. I think this probably would have been a better single than Intuition, or any other one right now, because I just think it would have been, maybe they would have said, oh, John's gone soft, but I still, it's such a great bouncy track. That's all. Sounds really good on everything here.
And this is the one, just a little correction here. This is the song where he stated that was a failure as a song.
Oh, is
it was
that
a good lyrics, but I could never get the words to make sense.
Oh, is that the one?
Wow.
It had possibilities of being a good hit record, but I never got it to work. It didn't work.
Wow.
I apologize. I thought that was Intuition. Okay. I must have written it wrong.
And also, it's also based on a Yoko statement. Only people can change the world. And maybe that's why. But he said that in 1980. So, he would have.
She said it on Douglas, I think.
Yeah, well, I think you're right.
Douglas or Cavett.
Yeah, so she, that comes from that. So it's at least a year old. And maybe he was right. Maybe he liked the chorus part. Only people.
The Billy demo is interesting, though.
The Sally and Billy.
Or the Sally and Billy, yeah. But again, also, as I wrote in my notes here, very Beatle-y in that aspect of things.
Yes, that one is.
Which who knows? That could have taken. Was he steering away from going Beatle-y? Do you think? Were there a couple of bits? Because there are a couple of bits in some of the evolutionary parts where you hear a little bit of a stronger, like, oh, that could have been from the Beatle period. And do you think he, if he caught that, did he dance away from it a little bit, or was he that conscious? Do you think?
I think the only Beatle to really do that was George.
Well, yeah.
And that's why "Don't Let Me Wait So Long" was not a single, because that would have been a Beatles single,
right?
So I mean, and I think George himself used people like Dave Maddox and different people to play different tracks other than Ringo, that would not play like Ringo. I mean, songs like Woman Don't You Cry for Me, which Ringo would never have done.
Well, Willie Weeks became his bass player.
Right, but I'm just saying, I think the only one to go purposely, consciously away from Beatle is George. I don't think John, John was the Beatles. I mean, I'm not saying that to be controversial.
No, but yeah.
But John, John was the Beatles, so
Still the same guy.
Yeah.
And you can't take that out of
So it's probable
maybe if he
then.
had Paul to write with, but this is the point. If he had Paul to write with, maybe he would have followed up on some of the Evolution stuff, and it would have sounded more Beatle-y.
And also, too, as Chip was saying, it's also a different group. You have to wonder if he was doing something like Only People, and it was Klaus and Ringo. Maybe it would have taken a slightly more Beatle-y turn, but with
or a more imagined turn.
And nice.
What was that, Chip?
Chips. Go ahead, Chip.
I said, and been out of tune.
Oh, wow.
That was good. Anyway.
Wow, Chip.
You need to listen to some of the Imagine Isolations.
The outtakes.
Oh, yeah. All right, so now that we've killed Klaus,
yeah,
losing our Klaus Vormann interview possibilities in one blow. Anyway, no, sorry.
let's talk about I Know. We talked about it a little bit. There's so much to talk about here. Beautiful song. I think sequencing, as you said, Rob, I know, and then You Are Here, I think should have been different because they're sort of both slow. But there's a great guitar on the Elements mix. I just think some of these are, I mean, it's a good song. It almost sounds like it doesn't go places that maybe it doesn't sound finished to me. I don't know.
It's me. I've said this in so many episodes. I don't know why. It's my favorite Lennon song. I don't know why. No idea. No idea.
Well, you know what?
Not a clue.
I didn't think about this song for a long time, and then, each Valentine's Day or around Valentine's Day, I do love songs, and I said, let me check the lyrics for I Know, and I looked at it like, damn, this would fit in on a Valentine's Day thing.
Yeah.
But look at the lyrics. Look at the lyrics with a head towards the idea that it could be a song to Paul.
But it's another apology to Yoko.
It's supposed to be an apology to Yoko.
Yeah.
But if you listen to some of I had a buddy who broke it down and said, all the fact that they would hide little, John and Paul would put, but if you read it with that in mind, you could find, he sent me like 15 different little McCartney things. I'll send it to you guys later, but just saying, I don't know. Yeah, it's about Yoko, but
there is footage on YouTube of an interview with John, and Yoko's there too. And John goes, well, Paul was right about Klein.
Yes.
Oh, yeah.
And that was in the middle of 1973. So, now mind you, this song might have started a little bit earlier, but he did say Paul was right. So I know. Yeah, I know, Paul. Shut up.
Well,
I know.
I think it's a stretch, but
it is a stretch, but you know what? How are they influenced as writers? Sometimes, like two of us, Paul always said, well, it's me and Linda going out for our Sunday drive.
Yeah,
well, it's also about you and John, but he doesn't want to admit that. So it's about him and Yoko, him and Linda doing,
hey.
I believe it is about him and Linda, but there's a lot of mentions in there about John.
You can do that about a lot of the songs.
It's about John. It started out, Hey Jules, So,
well,
and then Paul said, well, it's also about me too, because he was breaking up with Jane Asher.
Yeah.
So let's go on to You Are Here, because this I didn't like when I was young. I absolutely love this song now. It's just I love Gon Troppo, so this is the most Gon Troppo feel song on this album. And I know Gon Troppo was much later, believe me. But this song, it's very long. I wish it was a little shorter. And on a lot of the mixes, it's even longer and longer. And he had a couple of other verses about Japan and all that. But I think it's a beautiful song. I think if you would have switched this and Meat City, I wouldn't have been upset because this would have been a nice way to end the album, just nice and mellow. But Meat City also is a great way to end an album too. So, but again, if we're sequencing and we're trying to get I Know, and You Are Here away from each other, I wouldn't have minded it ending the album. But I love this song and I think it's beautiful. The pedal steel is really lovely on the Elements mix. In the Elemental, it sounds very Gon Troppo, and I just think it's just in general, it's a beautiful song that is very underappreciated in his catalog.
Chip?
Well, the sentiment came back from their exhibition in 1968 is where the title came from.
Right.
And that's why we kind of have the Danger Box and the You Are Here on as a part of the cube. We got some of the lyrics from Rudyard Kipling. The last verse.
Okay.
With, the Ballad of East and West, which reads, "Oh, East is East and West is West, and never the twain shall meet."
Oh, wow. Yeah, right.
Okay.
So I don't think
What were you going to say?
I was going to say, I don't think Kipling's getting any royalty checks from it. But,
John nicked a lot of things, not just Come Together,
right.
Nice.
But it's just such a mellow song. And for John at that point, I think that might have put people off. I don't know. He wasn't as mellow. I mean, even though, he still had Hold On Plastic Ono. I mean, that's pretty mellow too, but
See, I go right to Beautiful Boy from this.
Well, it's a precursor of yacht rock, right?
Yes.
yeah.
Yeah, it definitely is.
He was ahead of the curve already.
Yeah. He could have joined Pablo Cruz after this for all
What
we
she
know.
gonna do when
Rob, who sings that song, Rob?
Pablo Cruz.
Let's keep it that way. So anyway.
Ouch. Ouch, right here, man.
Wow.
Sorry, I heard that from Family Guy.
No, but
okay.
there is again another tropical vibe on this. That's how it's another one where I wrote one of my on the outtakes version. So again, another Buffett cover, but anyway.
Yeah, it's a beautiful song though.
Yeah.
Really,
Yeah.
and he sings it so sincerely.
Yeah.
It's such a lovely vocal. And again, on all of these discs, it just really shows, as Chip said in the beginning, the incredible musicianship throughout this box.
Can I throw something out there and then
Sure.
just one thought? And
Yeah.
Chip, you're talking about the musicianship. Is it? I've never seen anything done like this where a disc on a box set is dedicated to people who are not the
Right.
focus of the release. So, any thoughts on that?
Oh, I'd rather have 6 discs with one disc not being the primary person on the release than 5 discs and not have it.
Right.
Hmm.
Right. So you're saying just for the purpose of but I don't recall that ever having been done before.
No, not that I can't either.
So this is kind of like, what gave Sean the inspiration to go, wow, these guys were great players. My dad's not even on this aspect of, what I'm doing, but geez, let's hear what this all sounded like. It was really a pretty wild thought, I think, to do that in a box.
So
I don't know if they were trying to run up the discount or if it was a matter of how many remixers do we have on this?
Right.
Maybe each maybe it was they were so good that it's not going to cost us anymore to put it in here. Let's just.
That's what I was because when it comes to royalties and that stuff's all covered. They're not paying anybody else. So it was kind of like, my first thought was, well, why would you do that? And then, as you said, when I heard the disc, I was like, wow, I'm certainly glad you did. Like it made no sense going in until I heard it. And then it was
the thing about it is, to me, is it's not like on some of the other releases we've had, especially from the Beatles stuff, where they there's no vocal track, but the backing track is there. This is pulls out specifically, whether it's a piano mix or Gordon's bass specifically, and stuff like that. So it is different in that sense where, it's not just stripping the vocals, which would have been the easy way to do.
Right. Sure.
Right. Why didn't we get a disc of just instrumentals of the album with his voice taken off?
Yeah.
Right. So
So
there was thought put into the who we're featuring and what, and wow, it does really make these people shine. It's just incredible. So anyway,
let's finish off the show with Meat City.
Well,
hold on. Go ahead, Chip. Chip is saying.
Chip starts on this
opening.
one.
Yeah,
What?
exactly.
Oh, the what?
And even on the outtakes, just the 1, 2, 3, 4.
Yep.
Just the,
I love. Listen, the evolution disc on this is my favorite because they're having so much fun, and the count-in, he's going boom and boom, and I mean the boom boom. The way they're doing it just sounds so fun. And I would have loved to have been there. And John's laughing, and he's just having such a good time with it.
And I have fun with the alternate placement of Meat City Shook Down USA.
Yeah.
In the demo, I like that it appears in the other spot, and that's kind of fun. But
he doesn't say Mother Trucking in a couple
right
versions.
This always reminded me of Give Me Some Truth, because he does the whole Mother Trucking, the same thing as
good point,
Tricky Dicky. I mean, it just I like both of them equally. They're both different vibe, but this is John's wordplay at work, and I just think it's brilliant. Again, I think it's funny what he did with the album and the single. I'm not getting into it here because it has an expletive, and we're not going to talk about it on the album version. And then exactly.
Sorry,
but when you know what, Tony?
You know what he was saying? His love for Porky Pig.
There you go.
yes.
But you'll find. I'm sorry.
Go ahead, Chip.
I was just going to say on some of the demo tapes, he'll get mad at himself, and not necessarily mind game demo tapes. I'm talking more the Bermuda tapes for Double Fantasy. When he'd make a mistake and he'd get flustered with himself, a pig would be his exclamation.
How funny!
But
it's usually like in the States, it always be, or in a lot of places, it's a duck, which is like a duck. So I'm wondering if UK it's a pig, which is kind of funny. So
well, I know in Ireland, as Paul said, it's a goat.
one goat.
Just one. But it is a great album closer. And it is very clever what he did with the single, where he says, backwards check the album. But I think also they definitely lowered the sound effects in Meat City on the Ultimate Mix. At least in my eyes, they did.
Yeah, I think so.
They used to be a lot more prevalent when you hear, and all that good stuff. Yeah. Now it's much lower in the mix, I think.
But it also works better because when you hear it without it, you're like, okay, I understand the joke and why they did it. But when you listen to the versions without it, it's like, oh, I like that too.
But some of the balls are missing in the Ultimate Mix. I'm sorry.
Really? Some of it.
Yeah. I don't know.
I still think it sounds really good. And again, this album in general, because we're going to wrap up, this album in general, we've just talked about it. Did we really find one song that was bad? Did any one of us, four of us, have a criticism of, other than me saying bring on, the Lucy, Free to People, other than the fact that I said I didn't like it, but I didn't say it was a bad song. I just said I didn't like it. So is any song on here really bad?
I think a couple of them are subpar, John.
Okay. Which ones do you think?
But they're not necessarily bad.
Right. All right. So which ones do you think are subpar, in your opinion?
Lucy, perhaps.
There you go.
No.
Only People.
Oh,
I think might be a little weak.
So that's enough for Chip. We're going to right now. There'll be three of us, and no. I mean, look, it's your opinion. Obviously, it's fine.
I, you know, there are times when I would go to this record and there were songs where I wasn't necessarily in the mood to hear. I think this album grew on me and became more of a, I like to listen to this album as a single listening experience, and then probably any other Lennon record. I mean, there are times, I hate to say, there are times that I'm going to skip over I Don't Want to Be a Soldier. Right.
Oh, me too.
You know, there are times when I'm going to skip over Sometime in New York City. No, I'm kidding. There are times that I'm going to skip over one or two tracks on Sometime in New York City. And you know me, I like the Yoko tracks on that record too. And Plastic Ono Band, again, like I say, you could sit through, but you've got to be in the mood for Plastic Ono Band.
Right.
You know, and then follow it up with Universal Mother by Sinead O'Connor. But which to me is, I think, is the other side of that record. But
and then just rip up a picture of the Pope.
And then rip up a picture of the Pope. But yeah, no, this record, no clunkers. I don't think.
It's also grown. It's changed over the years, and the acceptance of it, I think, is a lot better than it was. You got to remember when John put this out, he separates from Yoko. He starts hanging out with Keith Moon and the rest of them, and he's with May. And there was a whole like gossip thing about John, not about his music or anything, but it was about the gossip of John hanging out and not with Yoko. And here he is hanging out with Keith Moon. And people like that. So
yeah,
I think that was part of it. That whole just John being out there, and you think it would have helped him, but it didn't help him as much as he wanted. But then again, 74, he put out, did some really great work. So
let me ask you a question, and then we're going to wrap and give Chip a chance to self-promote.
Yes. Yeah.
Which is a good thing.
Yes. Do you think Sean and team accomplished what they set out to do with this album, with this box set, with this cube, with this promotion? As far as I'm concerned, I think he did, because I think it sounds fresher, obviously, in production wise. I think you do. The objective of hearing John's voice, to me, is fully realized. I mean, I love it. And I've always liked it. And we've seen on our social media that a lot of people say they didn't love the album, but they do love the new mix and they appreciate it a little more. So do we all think that Sean has accomplished what he set out to do?
Yeah. Back as early as when Mark and I wrote Eight Arms, it's a long time before this box, we had the Lost Lennon tape versions of the albums, which were basically without any overdubs. And there was just a clarity to all those tracks that we didn't have before. And I think that's done a lot for me in regards to how often I'll listen to it.
Tony?
I would say so. I mean, it's hard to think that he wouldn't have achieved what he was going for. I mean, I think, could you armchair quarterback and talk about what could have been done differently? Sure. Could he not have taken the saxophone off the end of One Day at a Time? Sure. But
because that's his vision, not John.
Because that's his vision. But again, at the same time, I do sit there and kind of cringe and go, yeah, but you're not John. But you didn't take away the other one. Right. I don't get to the original ones mysteriously vanish from my collection.
All of them. How many are there? How many Mind Games versions are there out there now? 2 or 3?
Right. So yeah. So the idea is, I mean, I think he accomplished what he set out to do, because otherwise it wouldn't have been out yet. He would have been still tweaking, or the team would have been still thinking of a different approach. We could, like I said, for me, I'd love to have had each track 12 ends, 12 seconds of silence, or whatever, 72 seconds of silence, and then a whole slew of stuff from the Boots. But that's just me being a whore. I want, give me more. The bootleggers would give us 80-minute discs, but that's a different universe, I think that, I'm sorry, Tony, finish up. I'm sorry. No, that's it.
Oh, okay. I think with all like the hidden tracks and stuff, whether it's on the Blu-ray or if it's on these discs, I think that was done on purpose in the sense that, people don't do hidden tracks really anymore. You know in advance, and we know they're there. We just can't find them, and that's one of the problems. And that's to me a main problem. One of the things I liked about Plastic Ono Band is they included the 3 singles from 69, 70 as part of the album.
Yeah.
And then they included it along the way. So
part of the puzzles and games.
Yeah. Well,
it's making you find the hidden tracks. I'm not going to go crazy.
Yeah. But you know what? I have to ask someone to find it for me because my CD player doesn't go backwards. And even at the radio station where I tried to, I have a rewind and a fast forward on the CD players I play off of, and it doesn't work. So, I mean, I know they're there because
I'll be able to get
I know you will, but it says it on the disc, bonus track, Rock and Roll People. But, where is,
You can't have it.
Yeah. Well, the other thing we should say before we let Chip take the floor is that Mellotron...
You take the screen. He doesn't have to take the floor.
Yeah, well, it depends. He's tired. He might actually, but the only thing I'll say is that on Mellotron Magic, the 11-minute thing, I can imagine after a while it got me a little bored, but because it goes nowhere. But I could imagine that, as I said earlier, that this is what Carnival of Light sounds like, sort of. It's just we'll be like, 11 minutes of Carnival of Light or whatever it is, and Mellotron Magic, and then you hear it and you're like, okay, thank you, I'll never listen to that again.
I just always remember the gag when we said something to Mark Lewison about Carnival of Light, and we say, Carnival of Light. He's like, just trust me, guys. It's 12, 15 minutes of your life you're not going to get back.
Yeah.
And then I said, well, sort of like hearing the 27-minute Helter Skelter, I guess. And he went, oh no, that's great.
Anyway,
it was like, we hate.
We're going to give the audio to Chip Madinger right now to tell you a little bit about where you can find his books and find him if you want to contact him. So, Chip,
take it away.
Chip of I'm not going to say your city. Opportunity Knocks.
All right.
Opportunity.
Back in 2000, I did this book with Mark Easter, which I think a lot of people have enjoyed, and then it kind of ran out all the copies of it, so we decided to update it and make it available electronically.
Oh,
so there are about 30,000 new words in that one.
Wow!
And
are they all the same word?
Yeah, we took out 30,000 bad ones and put in better ones.
Okay.
Now I just had a problem with my thing. But did you add on from 2000, or did you just add more?
No, we added a lot more information about the sessions.
Oh, okay.
So it's still lopped off at 2000 because I was not going to go through and listen to the McCartney 2002 tour or every All-Star Band show like I had for the first book. That's for the next generation, I think. But
it was so great. One thing about your book, it's so great that you did that.
Yes,
that
very
the different shows.
Yeah, very comprehensive and very well written, by the way.
Yeah.
I look at it and wonder who did this.
A few years later,
there was this beast.
Wow,
which is
brilliant.
Lennonology. It's basically a day-by-day chronicle of John and Yoko's life and art together. So this is pretty much day by day, and you can find both of them on the website lennonology.com.
Yay!
There it is.
Everybody, that's LENNONOLOGY. Lennonology.
Nestle's makes the very best chocolate.
Right there. Chocolate.
No, we'll put a link.
Amazon.
Wait, hold on. What was that? Sorry, Chip.
I said go here and not Amazon.
Yeah, really.
We agree.
We will put a link to that website on the
yeah, absolutely, in the description.
Put it in the content of the show.
Yeah.
And don't forget, people, we have a deluxe box to give away. So please go back and listen to Tony's commercial that he's inserted here.
Hey everyone, it's Tony from Fab4 Free for All, and boy have we got a special contest for you all. Here's your chance to win a Mind Games Deluxe box set, which includes 6 CDs, 2 Blu-rays, a great book, and other fun, cool stuff. All you need to do is watch or listen to this entire Mind Games analysis show and answer the following question. Which song from the album does Mitch say he has never really cared for? Got it? Now, send an email to fab4freeforall@aol.com using the words Mind Games in the subject line. And in the body of the email, please include your answer to the question, along with your name, address, and email, so we can contact you right away if you're our winner. We will not use your information for any other purpose. The contest is open to all countries, though we are not certain that these discs are region-free. Entries will be accepted through August 9th, 2024, with the winner being picked and notified on August 10th. Know that this box comes to you courtesy of the fine folks at Universal Music, who provided us with one to give away to you, and of course, us, your buddies at Fab4 Free for All. Thanks for watching, and good luck.
Because there will be a question that you have to watch this show in order to win it, because we're not just giving away this box for free.
Oh, I thought what we should do is have everybody spend 2 hours looking at the Morse code and telling us what letter is missing. Sorry.
I think F and U. Anyway, so go back and listen after you hear Tony's question. Go back and listen to the show, and then you'll figure out how to enter to win the deluxe box, which is courtesy of the good folks at Universal and the Fab4 Free for All. So for the Fab4 Free for All.
Oh, one more thing.
Oh, here we go, Columbo. What?
This is a regular thing, Chip.
Yes, he does.
Yes.
This is part of the Columbo. Yeah.
It's part of the charm of this show.
So says you.
For those who can't afford the box, the 2-disc set is very good. The outtakes, the whole outtakes disc is on disc 2 of the 2-disc set.
Yeah.
The liner notes are really good in there, considering it's a much smaller book. If you can't afford it, it's really cheap, actually, because the 2-disc set is on special price because of what this is, what time of the year it is, whatever. So, if you can't afford the box set right now, the 2-disc set is very good. And a lot of the stuff we were talking about is on the outtakes anyway. So
yeah, and the vinyl was made in the Czech Republic, and it's horrible.
Okay, well, I haven't heard mine yet, but
unfortunately, a lot of people have had many issues with the vinyl. The good vinyl is always made in Germany. This is made in the Czech Republic, and it's just been horror stories already. So
don't spend your money on the vinyl. Don't spend your money on the vinyl. Go to Lennonology.com and buy Chip's books.
Yes.
Yeah, right. And you can put that on your turntable.
What was that, Chip?
You can hear the whole 6-disc set on Apple Music as well.
There you go.
That's true. I think it's on Spotify too.
Spotify as well.
I should say the book Lennonology, if you remember when John first got together with Yoko, he said that they made love in the morning when the sun came up. In the book, this is why great his book is. It tells you what time the sun came up in London. So just to let you know, I won't give the time, but
and then you could go listen to Kiss 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 and hear what happened afterwards. Anyway, on that note, I have been your moderator for this Mind Games complete review and analysis, Mitch Axelrod, and joining me as they always do are Tony Chiguardo.
Take care, folks. Thanks for listening.
And Rob Leonard.
Thank you, everyone.
And we want to say a big thank you to Chip Madinger. This has been a blast. You've really been a great addition to the panel. A lot of great insight. We really love it. We appreciate it. So thanks for being on.
Thanks for having me, guys. We'll have to do it again sometime.
We absolutely will. So on that note, have a great night, everybody, or day, whatever you're doing, and we'll see you again soon.
Thanks, everybody.
Fab4 Free for All was edited and produced by Tony Chiguardo at Word of Mouth Studios in Westbury, New York.
The opening and closing theme is My Dolly by the band The Badge, featuring longtime listener Jeff Slate, available on its debut album Digital Retro and recent Best Of compilation, as well as from the Fab4 Free for All website.
Thanks for listening to Fab4 Free for All.